Three Canadians cashing the big check on the final day, the Super Bowl of Rodeo, and we'll start with one of them in the tie-down event, where it's our first Canadian to win the big check, Morgan Grant of Granton, Ontario. Now, a lot of people would say, who? Not after yesterday. He was here in two events. He qualified for the final in the steer wrestling as well and came up just short, but he tied down in 7 flat. An Ontario cowboy, lives in Texas, proud to wave the Canadian flag, and that was a big moment. His family was there, and that's something else. It's his first Stampede, and again, a newcomer that no one's ever heard of, but you can rest assured he'll be back. He had a chance to win $200,000 yesterday as you watch him in slow motion.
$100,000 check helps, too, to bring you back.
Right? Oh, no kidding. Yeah. So the reigning champs always do come back to the Calgary Stampede and get the invite, so you know he'll be here, and people will be watching very, very closely for Mr. Grant next year. In steer wrestling, again, it was Trevor Knowles of Mount Vernon, Oregon, bringing down his stock in 3.8 seconds here to take top spot. That just edged out Morgan Grant and Billy Boogning, 4-1, a tie for second there. So Grant did pick up another $20,000 for that. Third time in 6 years that Knowles has won the Stampede. His previous wins back in 2009 and again in 2012.
Third time in 6 years. Good for him.
Yeah, so Calgary's a worthwhile stop on his tour, I would say, right? Bareback, it was Casey Field, Spanish Fork, Utah, with the beautiful smooth ride here on Mucho Dinero to score a 92.
Horse, right?
Oh, a beautiful horse. And he takes home Mucho Dinero for this, $100,000. A three-time world champion, now picked up 3 wins at Stampede as well, including one in the novice bareback. And there you go, $100,000 for KC Field, who loves coming to the Calgary Stampede. Had his new daughter there on stage, and that's one of the best parts about the Final 4 showdown is the families are there and they bring them up on stage, and you get an idea just how much these guys really do enjoy coming to Calgary, especially if you can go home $100,000 richer. In Saddlebronc, our second Canadian winner of the day, Dustin Flundra of Pincher Creek, his first Stampede win. The 4th final he's been in. He's been here, I think, 14. Is this his 14th Calgary Stampede? And he finally takes the stage and picks up the check. He and Wade Sundell had tied at 89 during the final, and they needed a tiebreaker, a ride-off, and they got an 87.5 that we just saw there on Holly Blues, and that just edges out Sundell's 86. On Rubel. So a big, big day for Dustin Flundra. He's into his 30s now. Finally cashing the check, and the crowd went nuts for the Canadian, and the crowd went nuts for barrel racing as well. To the ladies' barrel racing we go. Kaylee Bass, Kissimmee, Florida, took the top spot, just beating out. This was so close.
This was very close.
Fallon Taylor, who Jill Belland was with on our program here Friday. And Jean Winters tied for second, or 2-3, I suppose. They were 1/100th of a second, literally a blink of an eye behind Kaylee Bass, and she was the last barrel racer out and wins by 1/100th of a second. Top spot of the day at 17:61.
Wow, look at her go.
Bull riding, the signature event, the capper of every rodeo. As you look at Kaylee hold her big check up, the grandstand crowd had the most to cheer about. Strathmore's Scott Schiffner, a smooth ride here on Mr. Buddy, a bull that took Ty Posabon of Merritt, BC to a win earlier in the week. Ty was in the final as well. Schiffner scoring 89.5 to edge out Posabon, who notched an 88 for second spot.
And he has his baby girl there, too.
Absolutely, and he last won at the Stampede way back in 2001. This one much more special, seeing his 3 daughters could join him on stage to collect the big check. And hey, should point out, we don't have a cowboy to watch, of course, because it was the last day of the Calgary Stampede, but there's a rodeo to watch in Strathmore coming up in 3 weeks' time.
Excellent.
And if you got hooked this week, head on to Strathmore in 3 weeks' time. And you might want to think about
will be there for sure.
Absolutely, well, for sure. The hometown bull rider, looking forward to that, and they're already celebrating in the Strathmore area. You can also book some chucks for High River if you got hooked on it this week, and why wouldn't you? It was great. Time for the showdown here. Kurt Bensmiller making the most of the #1 barrel. That's the barrel you want to draw. He was the favorite coming in, takes the lead off the start, never looked back, rolling all the way to his first Stampede victory, picks up $100,000 for his efforts. Back and forth all week between Miller and Jason Glass, last year's winner, but Glass had trouble with the 4-barrel and could only get into 3rd spot. Ray Crotto came in 2nd behind Miller. He gets $25,000 for that spot, but Miller, a really, really strong start to his summer. He got $50,000 in Ponoka.
Wow.
Picked up $35,000 in total day money for the first 9 days of Stampede.
Yeah.
And then another
$100,000 check.
Yeah.
That's a couple of weeks.
And I mentioned Strathmore. Maybe book your calendar and head down to High River and watch some more chuck racing later on in the summer as well.
Kurt has his daughter up there too.
Yeah, it was a great, you know, Stampede couldn't have asked for anything better.
No kidding.
As far as the rodeo and the chuck shows were concerned. Huge crowds and highly, highly entertaining. Just a fantastic weekend.